was, here it comes.
He was a smart man and he gave it to someone else.
Give it to Mayor.
Something suddenly came up. Okay, get her about ready to start. Excuse me. Welcome to this meeting of the Wooddale Community Development Commission. My name is Brad Karish, and I'm chairman of the Wooddale Community Development Commission. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Damasco.
Here.
Mr. Carriage is not here.
Here.
Mr. Carriage is here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Shemanek is not here. That's who I was thinking of. Mr. Vant.
Here.
Mr. Woods.
Here.
And Mr. St. Marie is missing. Thank you.
I declare a quorum present. Under business items, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our September 16, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Voice or just roll call?
You just do a voice vote on that?
Yeah, voice, okay, all in favor, say aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries, the minutes are approved. I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our October 21st, 2019 meeting.
Second.
I need a
Make the
first.
motion first. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carried. Tonight, we have two public hearings scheduled. All testimony will be given under oath. At the hearing, there will be opportunity for the public to offer testimony and to comment. Following the public hearing, our deliberations will be open to the public, in the sense that all are invited to listen and watch. The public, however, may not speak during our deliberations. Staff will provide a general description of the proposal followed by their analysis. We ask that the applicant here tonight then give specific evidence to demonstrate that the proposal meets the standards of approval for the request. The burden is on the applicant to prove the case. With respect to others who wish to speak, he may give an opinion or present specific evidence as to why he believes that the applicant meets or fails to meet the standards for the request. Finally, we will strictly adhere to the schedule prepared for tonight's meeting. However, those wishing to submit evidence and testimony will be afforded sufficient time in which to do so. Whether you're a member of the public wishing to make a statement for the record or a witness testifying on behalf of an applicant, you will be placed under oath and then begin by stating your name and your address. You will be subject to the questions by the Community Development Commission and potentially cross-examination by the applicant. To allow for as many people as possible to be heard, we request that your remarks be limited to 5 minutes in length. If additional time is needed, the hearing will be continued until the next available hearing date. I will now call the matter before us this evening. Under our public hearing, case number 2019-CDC-13 is in regards to a sign variation for the 330 West Irving Park Road Development Project. Staff, can you please provide a summary of the request and indicate when notice of the hearing was published and whether you have a certificate of publication from the newspaper?
Would you raise your right hand, state your name and address, please?
Gosha Pocheja, City of Wooddale, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the publication notice for this case was published in Daily Herald on November 1st, 2019. We do have a certificate of publication on file. Property owners within 300 feet were also mailed notices, copies of the public hearing notice, and we did post a sign at the location as well, so we meet those requirements. The petition in front of us, as you mentioned, is for a sign variation for 330 West Irving Park Road, which is more specifically for Starbucks. To begin, this is just more of a locational map. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of Irving Park and Addison Street. The actual proposed development, as you may be aware, is currently under construction. This petition appeared in front of the CDC Commission back in 2018. This is for redevelopment of 2 parcels. One of them will house the 7-Eleven building with a gas station. The other building, which is actually a subject of today's petition, will house AT&T and Starbucks, which is that building right on this side. As I mentioned, there are 2 parcels. They are currently under the same ownership, but technically it's a separate parcel, separate PIN number, separate address. The subject site, as I mentioned, will house AT&T in portion of the building, and then Starbucks over here. Starbucks does have a drive-through built into the design, so that has not changed. That's something that's already been approved. I know that we had some conversations about accessibility. There's, off of Addison, we're gonna have entrance into the parking lot, and there's 2 curb cuts on Irving Park. So the circulation will probably go in around the site or follow this way. So most of the cars will come out this way and then are able to go out into Irving Park Road. The actual request in front of us is for a menu board. It's more specifically a pre-menu board for the drive-through. Our municipal code only allows 1 menu board sign per zoning lot. In this particular case, Starbucks, based on their business model, they usually have 2 menu board. One of them is called a pre-menu. The main purpose of it is to display more of unique or seasonal items, especially for people who are in queue in the drive-through, than before they actually get to the main menu board and the actual screen where they place their order. Because our municipal code only allows 1 menu board, the applicant has submitted this petition to request a sign variation to allow the 2nd menu board sign on the subject zoning lot. I did want to mention a little bit about the screening. So the area we see in green here is actually the landscaping of the site. This is one entire parcel, the subject site, but the area to the south will remain green space. There will be a number of trees that will be planted. All of these circles will be actual trees. So there's actually a fairly good amount of screening from the residential property that's directly to the south. I do have a close-up of that specific area where the drive-through is. And as you can see, the circle area, this is approximately where that pre-menu board sign will be. A little bit further to the east will be the actual menu board and all the other components of the drive-through. What we see here is that there will be landscaping here on the north and then on the south, and as you can see by the location of the drive-through, this sign really will not be visible from Irving Park or Addison Street, which are the 2 main streets. Looking a little bit closer at the actual proposed sign, it's about 5.4 feet tall, about 3 feet wide, and the actual square footage of the copy area of the sign is a little bit over 6.5 square feet. Those dimensions do meet our code requirements for menu boards. So once again, the only request is the fact that it will be a 2nd menu board sign on a single zoning lot. And moving into the recommendation, staff does recommend approval of this sign variation because we found that it meets the standards of the sign variation that are listed in section 13.802. And all of the standards are outlined in the staff memo that is in front of you. Thank you.
Do any new members of the Community Development Commission have any questions for staff? Sorry, I do have one. Is that a backlit sign?
That actually, it's a very good question. I will ask the applicant to answer that question.
Okay.
It is internally illuminated, so inside the mini board itself.
Excuse me, sir. You have to be sworn in.
Yeah, so what we could do now is we could
It's-
move to the applicant
yeah.
portion
Yes.
of the hearing.
Would the applicant please come forward and be sworn in at the podium? That way you can address any questions that we have.
And would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is David Rodatz, address 125 Hillside Drive, Greenville, South Carolina.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for making the trip up into this beautiful weather that we're having in
Happy to be here.
comparison to what you're probably having back in your hometown.
It's not much different at all.
Okay, all right. So first of all, if there's any other additional information that our staff didn't provide that you would like to provide, great. If not, you can just answer the question.
Negotiate did a great job going through everything. Again, just a small recap. The Starbucks would like this added to the scope of their work based strictly off that the pre-menu board itself is more unique items. The menu board is kind of their gold standard items that never changes. The pre-menu board offers them an opportunity to offer different items that are constantly changing, just to give their customer base more of an idea of what is on the menu. So that's always been the purpose of their pre-menu board and their scope of work. And as far as how it is lit, it is internally illuminated. So if you open up the menu board, there'll just be LEDs lighting, and that just lights up the menu board itself.
Okay, instead of it being kind of like a LED screen, it's just gonna be, whatever.
Exactly.
Posters or whatever that they have inside, or letters.
That's correct. So inside you have like the poster showing the items, and then behind that you have the lighting.
Okay,
So yeah, there's no digital ordering involved.
okay, great, thank you. Is there any other questions by any of the other board members? No? Okay, great. You can be seated if there's no other questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in objection to the petition, or any members of the general public in attendance who wishes to make a comment or has a question regarding this request? If so, please stand to be placed under oath. No? Okay. Let's see. There being no further questions, we can move into deliberation within the board. If there's anything that you guys would like to discuss, that'd be great. At this point, I'm going to close the public hearing for case number 2019-CDC-13. So, committee members, is there any things that you would like to go over, or discuss before we move ahead and take a motion on the sign? No? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the staff has prepared a recommended language for the motion. It's on page 4. If you'd like, what I could do is just read off the recommended motion, and then any member can say so moved. We'll get a second and proceed from there.
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay, so the recommended motion is based on the submitted petition and testimony presented. The proposed sign variation meets the standards for approval, and therefore I move that the Community Development Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the sign variation to allow a second pre-menu board sign for the drive-through at 330 West Irving Park Road in case number 2019 CDC 13.
So move.
Second. There being a motion to recommend approval and a second made, will the secretary please call the roll? As a reminder, a yes vote will be recommended approval, and a no vote will be to recommend denial.
And would you repeat, please, who made the motion?
I made the motion.
What's in the second?
Was
Yes,
Chairman Carriage.
Thank you. Okay, a roll call. Mr. Damasco?
Four.
Mr.
Yes?
That's a yes.
That would be a yes?
Yes.
Mr. Carriage?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Vant?
Yes.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
The motion to recommend approval of the proposed sign variation for 330 West Irving Park Road carries. We'll move on to our next case, which is number 2019-CDC-14, is in regards to a text amendment to Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code, the Unified Development Ordinance, or otherwise UDO, and related to recreational cannabis regulations. Staff, can you please provide a summary of the request and indicate when notice was posted and whether you have a certificate of publication from the newspaper?
And your name and address, please.
Gosha Pocheja, City of Wooddale, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we do have a certificate of publication for this petition, 2019 CDC 14. The notice was published in Daily Herald on November 1st, 2019. In front of us, we actually have a request for a text amendment. I did want to provide a little bit of background because obviously there's been a lot of conversation in the last few months about cannabis, both medical and recreational. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to consider text amendment related to the recreational use. But I wanted to provide a little bit of a background on the medical cannabis, as you also find in the staff memo. The medical cannabis actually originates back 2014. State of Illinois passed the Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Pilot Program Act. And that particular act established two types of establishments or two businesses. One of them was the Medical Marijuana Cultivation Center. The other one was Medical Marijuana Dispensary. At that particular time, local governments were not allowed to completely prohibit establishment of these types of businesses, the medical cannabis. Therefore, I want to say February 2014, we had a text amendment that was approved by CDC, then moved on to City Council. And the text amendment proposed to allow medical marijuana cultivation centers and dispensaries as special uses in the I-2 zoning district. I-2 is our industrial zoning district. So that has been already approved a number of years ago, and that is currently, it's still in effect. What I did want to point out is the state act for medical cannabis has very specific restrictions, locational restrictions. And the way it was actually proposed in City of Wooddale, those separation distances didn't really allow location of a cultivation center because they have to be spaced a certain amount of distance from residential, from schools, and so on. So although we do have it in our code, there really isn't a space in City of Wooddale that would work for it. However, we could allow as a special use a medical cannabis dispensary. To this date, we have not received any requests or any applications to consider that particular special use. So moving on to the recreational cannabis, that's the newer topic. We do have the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, which passed in 2019. It will be effective January 1st, 2020. And what it does, it legalizes the possession and private use of cannabis for Illinois residents over 21 years of age. So there are specific thresholds, specific amounts, specific places where people are able to consume the product. Local governments may not restrict private consumption. So in the state of Illinois, private consumption will be legal, once again, within certain locations, certain limits. However, local governments do have the ability to limit the establishment or completely prohibit establishments of recreational cannabis businesses. There's actually 5 different types of businesses. We have them outlined here, but ultimately it will be the dispensing organization, cultivation center, craft grower, infuser, and transporter. All of these require different types of licensing from the state. There's different sort of requirements, application processes that they would have to follow. But ultimately, when we refer to cannabis establishment or recreational cannabis establishment, this would be one of those types of businesses. Based on the feedback that city staff received, the city would prefer to opt out at this particular time, or in other words, prohibit establishment of recreational cannabis businesses. In doing so, we proposed a text amendment that would actually add a paragraph to our section 17.503. In 503, this is where we have a list of all of the permitted uses in our code. So we would add a sort of like a subsection, another section to it. So anyone who's looking at what type of uses are permitted in our city, once they go to paragraph B, they're gonna see this is the proposed text that would go in there. These essentially are regulations that state that those types of businesses are currently not allowed or prohibited. As I mentioned before, the current regulations do allow municipalities to prohibit them completely or provide some limitations and so on. So this is one of the approaches where we're going the opt-out route. These regulations obviously can be revisited in the future if more information becomes available. Obviously this will be a big impact on our finance, on the police department and things like that. As more information becomes available, once the actual act goes into the effect, we could always revisit these. We just wanted to have something in our code currently so that once January 1st comes around, we're actually going to have a text amendment that addresses it. So moving forward, we do believe that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the UDO, although the fact that it's a text amendment, we don't really have the requirement to adopt any findings of fact. But upon our initial review, we do believe that it meets the codes, it meets the vision of the comprehensive plan, especially about limiting potential negative impacts on the neighborhoods, mainly because there's so much more that could be still unknown and could develop once this goes into effect. Therefore, moving forward, the city staff does recommend approval of the proposed text amendment to prohibit recreational cannabis businesses, because we feel that they're consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the UDO. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments for staff?
The other thing I'd like to do is just follow up, and Gosha had made this point, but if the city determines to go with the opt-out approach, it can always revisit that prohibition in the future. What we're seeing, and we represent a number of communities, what we're seeing is the communities that are going the opt-out approach, they're doing it just because we don't know what the impact is going to be yet on police services. We don't know what, if that would be offset by any tax that might come in. So the municipalities are kind of taking this wait-and-see approach, prohibiting it for now, but always keeping an open mind and saying, well, in 5 years or whatever the time frame may be, if we want to revisit it, you always can. So I just want to make sure you know that you always have the opportunity to revisit it in the
Okay.
future.
Well, I know that, from what I understand, it sounds like Bensonville has already opted in, and that was made public. They're really the only one close that I think has really come out and said that they're going to opt in. So at least we have someone close by that's of similar size and circumstance, so we can take a look at it and see how it works for them and go from there. I do a lot of review within this new law because of impacts that it has for, work organizations and whatnot as well. Wasn't there a provision of the new law that allows for people to personally grow plants on their premise? And what is going to be the village's standpoint on that as far as?
So the new law, the recreational law, would allow somebody who has a medical cannabis card or license to grow cannabis at their home, and they can do up to 5 plants, 5 inches tall.
Okay.
That is something the city doesn't have any regulatory authority
Okay.
over. So they'll be able to do that irrespective of what the city does on this particular text amendment.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, seeing that we do not have a,
Excuse me,
yes, please.
can you impose a timeline on revisiting this question as to whether we make it legal or?
Yeah, the CDC cannot impose a timeline. The city council may want to say when it, eventually votes on this, it may say we would like to revisit this in, X number of years. But in terms of this body couldn't impose any sort of.
We could make a
deadline.
recommendation, though, couldn't we, like we do with other things that we receive? We say we'd like to see that happen and also this incorporated if council reviews and approves it?
Yeah, technically under our UDO, we can only make recommendations on the actual passing of the ordinance. We can't make recommendations on items outside of that, so.
So that's strictly city council.
Exactly.
Okay, as there are no petitioners, I'm going to ask if there's any members of the general public in attendance who wish to make a comment or has a question regarding this request. If so, please stand and be placed under oath at the podium. Please come forth and state your name and address, please.
Would you raise your right hand, please? State your name and address.
James Weinhoffen, 472 George Street, Apartment 1C, Wooddale, Illinois.
472,
George Street.
and would you spell your last name, sir?
WEIHOFEN.
F as in Frank?
Yes.
E-N. Thank you.
I just want to make a quick comment that what I've seen from other towns is that they are including a 3% additional tax on top of the normal sales taxes. I believe this could be incredibly beneficial for our school district. So for that, I think it should be heavily considered that the legalization go through with smart zoning laws. I would not be at all opposed. In fact, I would encourage things where you couldn't have it within a certain proximity of a school, daycare center, park, what have you. But my view is that we have an opportunity to be one, along with Bensonville, and I believe the next closest towns would be Carroll Stream and Buffalo Grove.
Around there, yeah.
We have an opportunity to be one of the first towns to go forward with it, a town that other cities could look to in the future, and wish that they had done what Wooddale did 4 years ago, 2 years ago, whenever they revisit. So I would hope that with smart zoning laws, with smart ways of going forward, that it would be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone on the committee that would like to ask a question of our speaker? No? Okay, thank you very much. You may be seated. Thank you. Is there any other further comments from staff that you want to follow up to what was brought up? No? Okay. All righty. Well, being that there's no additional testimony, I'm going to close the public hearing on this and ask that we go into any deliberation or discussion as far as the committee, if there's anything that you'd like to discuss at this time. No? Okay, I mean, just the only thing I have is that I do see the benefit in tax benefits and getting it. I think, you know, isolating it and having strict zoning laws and the placement and all that could be something that's very, you know, money generating. And we all know that people are going to get drugs whether they like it or not. It's going to happen. I say if it's going to happen, why not get on the ground floor and make some tax dollars off of it? But that's just my opinion, so.
Yeah, but you know that 3% would not go to the schools.
Understood. It's just money generation. It would have to be
Okay.
reviewed and decided where it's going to go by city council, right? Yes.
This is a pretty controversial, debate here. I mean, you know, for the last 60 years that I've been alive, I'm a little older than that, but it's always been a big controversy. And, you know, now that it's becoming legal in the state of Illinois to dispense it for recreational use, it's still against federal law. I don't know. You know, which way should the slinky go? I don't know at this time. I'll be very, very honest with you. I see a lot of these communities that are all listed here, no intention yet, or they opted out. And where's the one at? Carroll Stream hasn't even made a decision yet. I don't know. I'll be very honest with you. You had some
Go ahead, Coach.
great presentation you had. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, the only comment I have is that even though the federal government has still not called it or unscheduled it, you know, as a Class A drug or Schedule A drug, they're the first ones to collect the taxes on it, though. They're doing a real good job of that, so.
They can do what they
yeah,
want to do.
They want the
Yeah.
money, yeah, absolutely, so why wouldn't we collect it? But again, I digress. If there's no further discussion,
I'd like to say something.
yes, please, go ahead.
I just think there's enough impaired people out there now without legalizing it or promoting it.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think for the few tax dollars you get, you're gonna spend more on that on rehabilitating people and accidents and police. So I'd favor not legalizing it.
Okay, please.
Right now, it's a non-factor, so as far as we're concerned, it just is put off to the side, correct?
Well, so we would actually, the text amendment that is being proposed in our staff memo, that will be added to our code that specifically prohibits them at this point. But with our municipal code, we could always revisit that. As time goes on, we could propose another text amendment to modify that section.
And we'll leave it a dead item.
I'm sorry?
Then we'll leave it a dead item at this point.
Yes, so the recommendation would be to approve the text amendment as it is stated in our memo. Now, I can probably go back to it. That specifically says that it's prohibited. Sorry.
Please, Mr. Woods.
There you go.
I think it'd be a wise choice for us to go with the way we are going now. Let everybody else work out all the bugs and problems that there is going to be with it. And there's gonna be a lot of them, whether it be taxes, laws, whatever. And I don't think we wanna get caught up in that. So, that's all I have to say.
You know, the other thing is you're gonna be bringing an element of people in here, which you're stuck with anyway, but you don't wanna encourage it.
They're already
Look at the
here.
problems they're having with the Holiday Inn over in Itasca right now. I mean, the first thing that goes wrong, there's gonna be a lot of problems. The police don't even know how to handle that. They've got one ambulance. It's just not gonna work. They're gonna overload the hospitals. They said they're gonna have 4,700 to 4,900 people going through that process from all over the local counties. They're looking for trouble.
Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay, there being no further discussion, if.
Yeah,
you would
Mr.
please
Chairman,
read our-
we do have a recommended motion, and I will, just like before, I'll read off the recommended motion, and a member can say so moved. So the recommended motion is based on the proposed text amendment to the UDO, as summarized in the staff memo dated November 18, 2019. I move that the Community Development Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the text amendment prohibiting establishment of cannabis business establishments in case number 2019 CDC 14 as drafted in the city attorney memo dated November 13th, 2019. That is the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Carriage, was that you? So
no,
moved?
that would be Mr. Woods.
Okay, it's hard for me to hear sometimes when.
We throw our voices sometimes,
Okay,
so.
Woods and Peterson, thank you. And you're going to take a roll?
Yes, there being a motion to recommend the approval and a second made, will the secretary please call the roll? And
Mr.
as a reminder, a yes vote will be to recommend approval, and a no vote will be to recommend denial.
And approval, just so you know, is the opt-out approach, meaning
Right.
you will be prohibiting the cannabis business establishments in the city of Wooddale.
Say that again?
Okay, so,
If you vote yes, it means that you're in agreement with the staff recommendation of denying the sale of recreational cannabis within the city
So
limits of
yes is
Woodton.
no is what you're saying.
Correct. Yes is no, no, and yes, kind of like how you do it with your wife.
Okay, Mr. Damasco,
Yes.
Mr. Carriage,
No.
Mr. Peterson,
Definitely yes.
Mr. Vant,
Yes.
Mr. Woods.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries.
Motion carries.
Yep. The motion recommended to approve of a text amendment to prohibit establishment of recreational cannabis businesses carries. Okay. Our staff liaison report. Is there any report from staff?
Not at the moment. We do have a public hearing that is scheduled for, I want to say the 16th of December, but I do want to report as of today, we have not received any applications, so most likely that may be a cancellation. So it's quite possible the next time we'll see each other will be in 2020.
Wow.
I know, it's coming
Time sure
up.
flies.
Although we do have a couple things that we're working on for 2020, so
Okay.
we'll be back.
All right. Well, with that in mind, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those, there being a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. The motion carried, the meeting is adjourned. Have a very happy
Gosha.
Thanksgiving, everybody, and a Merry Christmas.
Gosha, Is there an opening date scheduled